Hello, my friend. Have you ever avoided a person because you didn't know what to say? Maybe walked away from a conversation thinking, oh, why did I just say that? Or maybe you feel like nobody really understands you. Well, you are not alone and you are in the right place. Welcome to Breaking Bad Communication, where we challenge the habits, headspace, and hangups that keep you from being heard. My name is Kathy Riley. I'm the founder of the Clarity Code and your guide with over 25 years in the courtroom and another 20 as a consultant, trainer, and entrepreneur. This podcast is your real world playbook for mastering tough conversations, building unshakable confidence, and showing up with the kind of clarity that changes everything from boardrooms to break rooms to your own backyard. So put your seatbelts on, my friend. We're going to break bad together. And one of the bad habits that a lot of people suffer from is rambling. Let's talk about rambling. Have you ever done that where you've just gone on and on and on in a direction or maybe a bunch of different directions and you realize as you're doing that you're not really making any sense and you're like, oh my God, please stop now. Many of us do it. And sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. We start talking and our brain is moving like a mile a minute. Ideas are flying, and somewhere between thought one and 17, we lose the point. Been there, done that, bought a t-shirt. I certainly have suffered from that for many, many times. It's called cognitive overload. Research shows that when our brain is overloaded, communication quality drops dramatically because we struggle to organize thoughts clearly. People under high cognitive load make more communication errors and become more self-focused instead of audience focused. We make it about ourselves. So our brain is moving so fast. It's moving faster than our mouth. So we dump information instead of delivering clarity. We worry about ourselves instead of who we're talking to. The other thing, we get nervous. That's another thing that happens is we just get nervous and we're like not confident. Studies show that on that cognitive load, hesitation patterns show that stress and pressure increase fillers, pauses, disorganized speech, and rambling. Um, 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 are you one of those people that you fill in the blank? You can't handle the silence. Maybe there's even a larger pause because your brain is working. When we get stressed out and nervous, everything shifts. Or maybe you're one of those people who actually is afraid to speak, right? Believe it or not, public speaking is still a top fear for most people. That hasn't changed. And you know what you want to say, but it just feels impossible. The truth is, the rambling isn't a lack of intelligence. It's an overload of the nervous system trying to organize itself in real time. And it's failing. And it's failing because it doesn't have structure. The brain is overwhelmed and it shuts down. And here's what the good news is, my friends. If you're listening to this and you're one of those ramblers, if you're one of those that gets really, really, really nervous and says a lot, well, communication is a skill and skills can be learned. Communication experts talk about how organized structure lowers cognitive strain and improves retention, which means there's a framework for that. You guys know I love frameworks. And so today I'm going to teach you a simple framework that helps organize your thoughts. So when you speak, when you share ideas, when you want to contribute to a meeting or a talk, a family gathering, when you want to navigate conversations, you sound clear, confident, and credible. Wouldn't you like some of that? I mean, let's be honest. You probably do know what you're talking about. I believe you do. You know it. It's just not being delivered because of that cognitive overload and your lack of structure. So it's time to stop doubting yourself, my friend, and create a structure around your thoughts so that other people can follow you. Because where you lead, they will follow when you bring clarity. So what we know is when people don't work so hard at communicating and gaining the clarity with their thoughts, people will follow and people will listen. But we need to create structure. So, how do we create structure? Excellent question. I'm so glad you asked. We're going to frame it. I love framing. Framing conversations is powerful. So, we're just going to call this the bookend method. And if you've had bookends, right, you have a book in the middle. So, you got a book on a book end on one side, a bookend on the other, and the book in the middle, which means we have an open, a genius, and a close. Those are the three things that we look at. So if you've heard this before, I've heard it tons of times, especially in litigation and in just communication classes and all that. You tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? So there's the beginning, which is the opening. You frame it, then you deliver the genius, and then you close it and close that frame. When you open, you talk about where we're going to go. Then you deliver that core message, that genius, that information, whatever that juiciness is. And then you close it by reinforcing what you told them in their takeaway. Because the way the brain works, our brain loves this framework, not just in speaking, but in listening. Our brains love the simplicity as listeners that allows us to follow you. So when you're talking, when you speak in this framework, it's easier to follow you and get you and understand you. So let's go a little deeper on this. Okay. So opening, right? When you open the conversation, you start with the framework. You tell people what you're going to tell them, right? And it could be something so simple as like, so what Joe was saying earlier, I wanted to follow up on that. I have a point I'd like to make, and then we can open it up for questions. Sound good? Boom. That's opening it, right? So in talking on this topic, there are three things that I want to talk about. There's one thing that I wanted to mention, and then we'll open it up for questions or, whatever. But you're creating a framework around it. And we're talking about this topic. We talked about dinner, right? This is the one thing that I wanted to say on that. And then we can, have a conversation about it. So I just want to explain why this is good, and then we can go from there. So you're preparing the listener. You're creating boundaries and understanding. And I got to tell you, if you're somebody that gets interrupted a lot, I'm one of those people, or I used to be, I should say. When you use these frameworks to say, look, I'm going to share these 3 points, and then we can open it up for questions. So just save it for there. And as someone who is a communicator from stage, right, from a classroom, from the front of the room, when you set boundaries and expectations, then people are like, if you've got some questions, I'm going to save you some time at the end for those questions, and we'll open it up for a dialogue. So I'm going to give you these things. We're going to cover this topic. I'm setting the expectations. That's the opening to the framework. You make it very, very simple and easy for people to understand. And you, as the talker, as the rambler, you're like, okay, this is my brain. This is what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about this. I'm creating the framework, right? Then the second step is delivering it. This is the juiciness. This is the middle of the frame. This is the solid. This is the information. This is the actual point that you're trying to make, right? When you're talking from stage, these are the three things. When you're teaching a class, this is the information. This is the lesson that you need to learn, right? You're clear, concise, and focused because you're just talking about this, right? And then as a speaker, you also add stories to it to make it more memorable. But that's for another time. We're going to focus on just keeping structure right now, especially for ramblers. And we focus on what is the information, what is the tip, the idea, the concept that I want you to hear. And I share it quite simply. And then the third step is closing the loop. And this is where we reinforce it, right? We bring it back. So, like Joe mentioned earlier, that I wanted to share that this point brings, reinforces what he talks about. And then it matters because da 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 da. And my key takeaway is, and our key takeaway is, and what you should know is, and if there's one thing you need to walk away from today, is knowing that this simple framework can create clarity and trust every time you use it, whether it's conflict or no matter what it is. This framework helps. So closing the loop to say, this is what we covered. This is your big takeaway. And here's when you say what you're going to say, then you say it, and then you tell them what you said, you're reinforcing that cognitive understanding and retention. So people are like, oh, I get it. I don't know about you, but most humans, they need to hear something a couple times before it really, really clicks. And sometimes they need to hear it a couple different ways. So funny story is when been married to Prince Charming for 20 some years. It's one He's my Prince Charming. He is amazing. He's the love of my life. But he joked with when we were dating and early in our marriage, would joke that, men, we need to hear things three times before we retain. And then he would joke that it was an attorneys need to hear something three times. And then it's just him needs to hear something three times. But the reality is, as humans, we need to hear something a couple times before we really, really process it and retain it. So knowing that, this framework works even more so for the brain, because we're going to tell them what we're going to tell them, then we're going to tell them, then we tell them what we told them, right? And their number one takeaway should be fill in the blank. So that's the framework around it. And when you are in a meeting, right, well, regardless of the situation, if you can say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, it becomes easier. You become more confident because you're structured. People trust communicators who create clarity. They do. People love clarity. You do. You know you do. So this is the framework I want you to think about. Are you someone who goes into meetings? Do you have presentations? Are you a leader? Do you have people that you teach in your community? Right? Do you ever stand in front of the room? Are you at the head of the table? Right? Do you ever have conflict? Right? And disagreements? Do you have family gatherings? Anything like that? Are you a parent? Do you network? Do you go out to the community and be social? Do you date? All of these communication situations can use this framework, and you can really, really build the confidence in you and sharing your ideas when you just simplify it. And I got to tell you, the more you do this, the easier it gets. When I first started speaking a decade ago, this was the framework that helped me stay focused and clear when I took stage, because I didn't want to. I'll be honest with you, I did not want to take stage. No, no, no. I remember when my coach first told me, I believe you're going to take stage. And I said, F you, that's never going to happen. And then a few years later, it was more important to share the message than to stay in my comfort zone. So I did it. How did I do it? I framed my talk, right? I'd said, this is what we're going to cover. I covered it. And then I said, this is what we covered and your takeaway. And I put the structure with it, which made it easier and easier. A decade later, I'm talking all the time. And I got to tell you, when it's a conflict, when when I'm in disagreement with someone, when there's another idea that I want to share that I don't think it's going to go over very well, this is the framework I use. It's simple. So the more you use it, the easier it gets. But more than that, okay, that's going to build your confidence. But more than that, it's going to be easier for other people to understand you. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We all as humans just want to be seen, heard, and understood. You want to be understood. Build a structure. Because I got to tell you, when you create structure, structure creates confidence. Confidence creates clarity, and clarity builds trust. You want people to see, hear you, and understand you. You step into that trust zone. You step into that and apply something so simple as this bookend, right? This bookend framework that will help every conversation. All right, so let's wrap it up. If you want to sound more confident, stop trying to sound smarter, right? Start becoming clearer. Clear communicators get heard, ramblers get ignored. So add the bookend framework to your communication toolbox. It is a tool for you to use today, tomorrow, next year, forevermore. When you get nervous, when your brain is overloaded and that cognitive overload hits, because it will. I don't care who you are, it will. You're human. Our brains work faster than our mouths. When that happens, you can step into this framework. You're prepared because you have this tool. You can be clear and you can bookend it. Communication, my friend, is not about saying more. It's about making meaning easier to follow. It's making you easier to follow. Because when you're clear where you lead, they will follow. Mic drop moment there. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. That's a wrap. Now, if today's episode sparked a new perspective or gave you a tool, which I hope it did, that you can actually use, which I hope you do, well, that's exactly what I'm here for. Remember to be a powerful communicator. It's not about saying more, it's about saying what matters with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Until next time, remember your voice matters. So keep showing up, keep speaking up, and let's keep breaking bad together.